So I just made a short video about stereotypes and the dangers of stereotypes, both positive and negative. But I kind of also wanted to talk about, because this was kind of inspired by an online thing I read about interracial dating. Um, I have dated people of many different races. Primarily, I have dated African Americans or Africans. Um, And I've spent a lot of time thinking about why that is, what my hangups are about my own racial identity, what I'm attracted to, what that means, who's attracted to me. And I have about as many theories as there are minutes in a day, so, we could talk about this a really long time. But to address it kind of generally, I want to kind of make people think about some of the implications of interracial intimacy, and as well as just general like people's perceptions of you and your relationship or your romantic encounters, and to what extent other people's perceptions should play into your choices, if at all. So one of the things I was thinking about was the way that when people are in an interracial relationship, there's a lot of stereotypes both about either race that affect not only how the individuals in that relationship might perceive each other, but also how outsiders might perceive that relationship. So if you are in an interracial relationship, or you know somebody who is, you probably have encountered this a lot. People may be making some joke that you might find offensive, or your partner finds offensive. If your group of friends are primarily one race or another, they might be less sensitive to some of the issues that concern you or your partner. So you have to be really like cognizant of that, and like, I don't want to say like extra PC, because that has an idea of like trying to say everything that's politically correct while not necessarily living it. But challenge yourself and your partner. If you are in a relationship with someone of another race, you should be talking about these issues, and you should be comfortable enough to share what your concerned, your own hangups are about your own racial identity, and what are some stereotypes or issues that maybe you even have with the race of your partner. I think that's a fair thing to do. I think it's a responsible thing to do. Certainly, it's not a requirement. I'm not the law on interracial relationships, but I do find for myself the relationships that have been healthier and more positive are ones where I can talk more openly about my own issues with my ethnic or religious background, as well as talking about my partners, and where they feel comfortable to share their own ideas as well. So I would really recommend challenging yourself. And people like to say stuff like, love is colorblind or whatever like that. And I think it is true to some extent. Just like you can say, there are some people who believe really sincerely, gender doesn't matter for the person you love or something like that. And I think that can be true to some extent, but there is also, physical attraction is part of why you enter into romantic relationships. And if you are physically attracted to your partner, and you tend to physically be attracted to people of a particular race or ethnic group or gender, I would say that you have a preference, and there's nothing wrong with having a preference. You shouldn't feel bad about it, whether that means you're attracted to people in your same group or in a different group. But it is important to be aware of it and to kind of ask yourself, why do you have these attractions? Some things maybe are just going to be biological, but then other things maybe are cultural, or have to do with your own personal identity. Maybe you have hangups about your own racial identity or something like that. You can talk about it more also, just generally the type of people that you're attracted to. We could talk about relationships, which I've made several videos about at this point anyway, about why it is you enter into certain types of relationships with certain type of people. So that being said, I guess the biggest thing I want to kind of put out there is like everybody's choices are their own. So you kind of have to respect that. don't try and convince your friend of whatever race that they should be exploring other races because they've been having bad luck with men or they've been having bad luck with women or whatever. Because just like with gender, just because you switch the group doesn't mean you're going to encounter different types of people. Um, there's diversity in every group. So if you tend to date assholes of your own race, if you switch to another race, you're probably going to date assholes in that race unless you work on whatever it is that's causing you to date assholes. And same thing with, whatever it is the issue is that you're having in the relationships you're having. So you shouldn't see it as a solution, like, oh, I'll just try something outside and then I won't be dealing with this issue anymore. Until you've done some self-exploration to figure out why it is that I'm making the choices to be with the certain types of people that I am, regardless of their race or ethnicity or religion or anything. And then think about what it is that you want and what type of future you see yourself having. The reality is, with an interracial relationship, there is still a lot of prejudice and stigma, and you might encounter more difficulties, especially depending on where you live. Um, so you just have to be aware of that and like whether you're really willing to deal with that on a day-to-day basis when you're trying to lead your regular life. Um, so those are some of the things to consider. But also something to consider too. I'm not necessarily an advocate, but I definitely support people having interracial relationships. Think about the ways in which you want to grow as an individual, and whether you're going to grow as much if you date somebody who's from the exact same background as you, or the same religion as you, or the same ethnicity as you, or the same race as you, or whatever, and what it is that you're really looking for in a partner. For me, I really love to learn and be challenged and have new experiences. So I find it, I don't want to say boring, but extremely limiting, extremely limiting to be with somebody who has a very similar background to myself. And I really enjoy getting to know the world through a romantic relationship because it gives you a different perspective than anything you could have just by simply traveling or even just making a close friend. Um, so anyway, those are some of my thoughts on that. But I just want to like caution people about judging others in general. It's your choice to say I'm never going to date someone outside my race, and it's your choice to say I only want to date people outside my race. But whatever your decision is, just like make sure that you think about it, question yourself a little bit to ensure what your intentions are and whether that's really the type of life and experience that you want to be living. And if you're okay with it, then full steam ahead. Do your thing. Fall in love, be happy, live your life just as you want, as long as you're not hurting anyone. That's what I believe in. Alright, that's it. Peace and love.